Welcome listeners to Through the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. And today, we got the pleasure and time of Ryan of Argenta Brewing Company.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. No, we appreciate it, friend. And especially you told us you flew in back from California last night. So I appreciate you making time on probably such a tired day.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's always fun doing stuff like this.
Sweet.
Yeah, I love it so much. Thank you for having us. And we just said your name, but will you please introduce yourself and let us know kind of what you do here at the brewery?
Yeah, definitely. My name's Ryan Dunlap. I'm the owner, operator of Argenta Brewing Company. We're based out of Portland, Maine, and in February, we're coming up on one year anniversary.
Congrats.
Very exciting.
So,
I love
yeah,
that.
Awesome. Survived.
Yes, almost survived the full year. We'll see if we can get the 2 years after that.
Heck yeah.
You never know.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
for sure. Did you grow up in Maine? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so originally I'm actually from the West. I'm from Reno, Nevada area.
Oh, wow.
I've been in Maine for about, I think coming up on like 6 years now.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah, so grew up in Nevada, came out here after college, and I've been in Maine since college, basically.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Dang.
What was it like growing up in Nevada?
Well, I'll have to go first off. People from Nevada are very particular about how you
Oh,
pronounce it.
sorry.
Okay.
It's
from
like a
Texas.
long A, like the Nevada.
Nevada.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nevada.
all of my family would kill me if I didn't throw that one in there.
Please do.
No.
I say things wrong all the time being from Texas, so
You can
I'm
email,
okay being...
You can email us about our
Yeah.
pronunciation.
I'm totally fine.
Nevada.
No, everyone out here says it wrong, too. You
Okay.
just get used to everyone saying it.
Yeah.
People out here always go, "Oh, Oregon."
Yeah,
And I'm
right.
like, there's no E on the end of it, but that's true.
Where are you getting this?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. No, but growing up there was great. It was a cool place. I mean, we were right next to like Lake Tahoe, the Sierras.
Oh, awesome.
So it's a lot of outdoor stuff, fishing, hiking, boating, just kind of being outside. Huge difference from Maine and the Northeast, though.
Yeah,
definitely.
it's like a similar but so different landscape. It still offers, I feel like, very similar things.
Yeah, you still get kind of cool, similar activities, just different place to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was family like growing up?
I was good. So I have an older sister, and my parents, we all lived together growing up.
Nice.
Basically, we were like a third generation. I was to like live in Reno, so most of my extended family lived there as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think growing up for me was very family-oriented. My parents lived in actually San Diego area. My dad was in the Navy, so we bounced around when I was like really little. And they ended up going back to Reno kind of so we could grow up around family.
Oh,
Which
awesome.
kind of looking back is like, really incredible experience that I got to grow up around, grandparents and cousins and all of that stuff.
Oh, nice. You guys just had like a family gang that would kind of run around and do everything to do it together.
Oh, yeah, it was like, every birthday and Christmas and stuff, there's like 40 people there. And
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, it was great. So, looking back at like my youth and all of that, I'm really thankful for that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also feel like that's why we like community and communal living spaces. It's like extended family. You all get to hang out.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, good place to grow up. Just for me, I went basically through college all in the Reno area, all in Nevada. So it was like, you live somewhere for like 22 years, like, I got to get out.
You got to
Yeah.
get a change.
Yeah. I mean, I did the same. So being in Texas and then moved out. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So what kind of hobbies did you do growing up? Were you interested in anything, sports or otherwise?
Yeah, I played like every sport except for basketball. I was horrible at basketball.
It's okay.
But yeah, I was really into like lacrosse and football in
Nice.
middle school, high school, all that. That's kind of what occupied probably most of my time. Really into fly fishing as well.
Nice.
So that was how I spent like summers and any weekend I got off, I'd be doing stuff like that.
Yeah. Very outdoorsy.
Yeah, and that was also another opportunity to spend time with like friends with fishing, my dad. So good hobby to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like growing up. In college, I started actually getting into home brewing.
Okay.
So kind of my beer experience started around then.
Does your family, so you would, all these like family events that you were at growing up, was there beer there? Were other people in your family interested in beer at the time?
Yeah. I guess it's almost like, was that acceptable and social in your family?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, most of our family events, there was beer.
Okay.
I think, at least like my immediate family, big into wine. They didn't really care that much about beer. It was like Coors Light when we're like camping, and like that's about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. So what got you into craft beer in the first place then?
Yeah, so I would say in college, I had a couple buddies who were in the same fraternity as me who did some home brewing. I never did that with them, but it was kind of this would have been in 2015. So it was craft beer just ripping at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they were into it, and that's when we started to try more unique beers. It was obviously we had our Keystone and stuff for parties, but it was maybe there's a little bit more to this going on. So then, at least on the West Coast where we were, Lagunitas was huge. That's a lot of what we drank. So trying all those different beers, this is way different than those cheap macro beers you can buy.
Yeah.
So just trying those and getting that experience was super interesting. And tried to homebrew with a couple buddies a couple times. Horrible. It was so bad. It was just medicinal and disgusting.
Oh, okay. I didn't know the process. Oh, so just everything kind of failed and went wrong.
Yeah. So it was the first couple homebrews we did, just absolute trash.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of psycho in the way that I always love baking and cooking and really getting into something with a process.
Oh, nice.
So I was I need to learn how this
You're
works.
I have to do this.
Yeah.
The curiosity and fire was this will be solved.
Yeah, I have to at least make something that's decent.
Okay, so at what point did you start seeing, I guess in your terms, successful batches that you were oh, I'm getting better?
It probably took me I don't know, 8 or so different brews before I was I could actually drink the whole thing.
Oh, nice.
So I was yeah, that's all right. I'll take that.
Nice.
I'm
That's
cool
awesome.
with slow learning and trial and error. Because that's mostly how I did things. It's just I was always the person who just threw away the manual and just tried to figure it out for whatever I'm working on.
Yeah.
Horrible strategy.
Was there a style that you were trying to perfect, or were you trying different styles? What did that look like?
Yeah, I was just trying all sorts of stuff. I would go to the Total Wine and the beer section and just go all right, what's a Hefeweizen? Let's try that. What's an amber ale? Let's try that. Try different beers. Because again, that was I was maybe 21 at the time, probably not.
Yeah.
So just trying different stuff and seeing what's out there.
Right.
Because it was kind of opening your eyes to what beer really offers.
Yeah. Do you remember a beer that you were this is it? I want to brew this.
Not necessarily in college. It was, again, for me, it was just how much knowledge can I gather and how much experience can I gain to figure out what's even going on.
Right.
Very
so
cool.
It's just a broad
spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to learn what's happening.
So you're doing this at college, but what was your study focused on at college?
I studied accounting in college.
Okay.
Yeah. Originally, grew up in Nevada. I went to school in Montana for 1 semester. I was I'm going to go there, play lacrosse. This is going to be great. Did a semester there. Really didn't enjoy it, and then ended up going back to school in Nevada and Reno.
Gotcha. Hey, that's smart. You learned, though.
Yeah, I was after a semester, I was this is just not it,
Good.
But I went to school majority at the University of Nevada, and so I studied business, and then I was okay, accounting I think is where I really enjoyed. So my whole plan originally was I'm going to do accounting, I'm going to go sit for the CPA exam, I'm going to become a professional accountant and do that the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So how did the divergent of getting into craft beer and running your own brewery happen? Because that's it's a opposite path.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there's a lot of numbers in beer, though.
A lot of numbers,
Yeah, statistics and data.
Yeah, love Excel.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd say the big turning point for me was probably my first senior year of college. I say that because I did my victory lap too.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. I had some mental health struggles in college, and I kind of got to a point where I worked in tax for a couple seasons. I worked an internship at a Toyota branch doing accounts receivable, accounts payable for them.
Okay.
And just after that, I was man, I am just kind of miserable sitting in this office 9 to 5 every day, and I feel this is just not the path for me at that time. It was I really wanted to explore things that just made me happier. Whether or not I would make any money doing them, because it's working in accounting, great job. You can have an incredible career and make good money, and but it's just for me at the time, happiness was the most important thing for me, and kind of driving where my passions lied.
Right.
So there, I was well, I'm really interested in craft beer. I had tried making a little bit at home. It was fun. So I was well, maybe I can sort of go in that direction and see if there's even an opportunity to have a job in this, because I had really not even looked and seen is this something I can even do to make money?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
craft beer? Like, what do the craft breweries look like in Reno?
There was a decent amount. Again, I had like turned 21, like I think it was like my first senior year. So it's like we tried some like craft beer around there, but I didn't really get into it too much because I moved when I turned 22.
Okay.
So it was kind of like dabbling in like random places, like the Brewers Cabinets, one out there that was really good. You have obviously like Sierra Nevada is really huge
Obviously.
influence
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Just a little one.
yeah, right. Lagunitas,
Yeah.
like we were saying, is really big. Yeah, but so kind of those. Yeah, so I mean, at that time, it's like my big change was just really trying to like, all right, where am I going to be happiest for the next, foreseeable future here? And
Yeah.
what can I do to, make my life as enjoyable as possible at the time?
Was some of that self-awareness, is that taught by your parents? I feel like what you're saying is a really, like, we've found people that we've talked to, it's a really good point of taking stock of, okay, like, how am I spending time in my life? Is this investment valuable? Because we're told, the same thing of, you get a job, you work a career, you eventually get to a point where you're making good money, and then at a certain point in time, you stop and retire, and then you get to do all the fun things. And you're a kid that grew up where it's like sports and outdoors was your work-life balance to schooling, and it sounds like you did well in schooling. Was that awareness taught by your parents, or where did you gain that? Was it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it must have been. It's one of those
Yeah.
things where I think it was just like in the back of my head, and that's where it was. But yeah, just kind of having that like revelation, if you will, in college of like, man, I just like right now I need to spend time doing things that make me happy, and I can focus on myself for a little while.
Nice.
It's kind of tough to say exactly where it came from.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool, though. And time frame, this was, what, like 2015, 2016, 2017 when this revelation kind of happened to you?
Yeah, it would have been like 2017,
Okay.
2018, somewhere in there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So then you're like, craft beer is something I'm super interested in and would like to discover it more or learn more about it. So where did you go from there?
Yeah, I actually took a trip to Europe in, I want to say it was 2017. I went with,
perfect.
It was like a month. It was, yeah, right. It was like a month and a half. My sophomore year of college, I lived with this guy from the UK, and his like big piece of advice is like, man, you got to like spend, a month or two and just go like travel. Because obviously that's like huge in Europe, but not as big in the US.
Right.
So he's like, save up whatever money you can and just like send it and just figure out the trip, go stay in hostels, live as cheaply as possible. You'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, get the
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I ended up doing that in I think the summer after my junior year of college. This is like 2017.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So went and did that, went to big beer places. I ended up going to Germany. I didn't go to like Czech Republic or anything like
Okay.
that, but ended up going to Germany, trying some just like incredible German lagers, like Hella styles. I got
Yeah.
to try
Oh, yeah.
the Radler, the half beer, half lemonade.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Any memorable stories from that trip?
Yeah, I think just like in general, like going to some of like the beer halls, like the Hofbrauhaus, and just some of those places in Munich is where I was in particular. Just like the beer culture is so different there.
Oh, yeah.
And just like drinking culture in general, like you can buy a beer at a grocery store and just like crack it on the street and walk around with it.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to ask, because drinking culture in America, I feel like, is at a young age is very party-centric, and
Yeah.
over there it's not. And so that's got to be interesting to see that firsthand.
Oh yeah, because it's like they obviously still party, but it's like in the U.S., at least in like college, it's like binge drinking, like
Yeah.
borderline like dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then over there, it's like that still happens, but it's a bit more of just like a casual part of everyday life. You know, it's like you might have on like after work, go have a couple beers, or on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like a different culture that was like kind of eye-opening to someone who had not been to like really other countries like that before. So it's like, all right, this is like a totally different experience that gives you a new perspective on what this could be that
Right.
isn't really.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So you go to Europe for a year, and then you come back and you finish out school. Then what were some of your next steps from there?
Yeah, so that was for, like a summer trip, came back. Really my like last year of college was my super senior year, did horrible in school. It's kind of, I made up the decision that I wasn't going to pursue accounting anymore. I was like, I'm going to go get a fun job, at least for like a year or so, see what happens. So I just started shotgun applying to jobs. And I picked like two areas in particular. I actually picked like the Oregon, Washington area, because I really liked it up there, and then New England. So I was
Oh,
just
nice.
like blasting out job applications all over the place. Probably sent out like 50 to 100 job applications.
Damn.
That was over like my last year of school, last semester, and no one got back to me except for one place, and that was up in Bar Harbor, Maine.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
We've
yeah.
been there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
quite the opposite of
Yeah.
Reno.
Yeah, no kidding. So Atlantic Brewing is the place that got back to me.
Okay.
I didn't know where Bar Harbor was, didn't know what was up there. I had been to Maine very briefly on a family trip, but really had never spent any time at all in New England.
Right.
So they got back to me. They had housing available. I worked, and
That's nice.
yeah, right. And the job was basically like a bartender and like brewery tour guide.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, honestly, this is sweet. I'm making like $12 an hour, but they have housing. This place looks awesome. So I decided to go with that job. That was probably in like April. I accepted that job.
Okay.
2019, and then I graduated in May, and like 2 days later, me and my buddy just drove across the country as fast as we could to go
Yeah.
get there.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah, that's quite the trip.
That's a feat. We've done Portland to Oklahoma City in 2 days, which is
Yeah.
about like 32 hours of driving.
Yeah.
That's a haul.
Yeah. So congrats to y'all.
Well, when we went to Bar Harbor, it was like a multi-week. We had like done things along the way to get there. So to
Favorite truck
get-
stop snack.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, that's like anyone that's going to travel across the country, don't do it in like 3 days.
No,
Take your
yeah,
time.
yes.
Like, it's a lot better if you can go do stuff.
Yeah, at least like a few days. Like,
Oh, yeah.
at least have like a sit down. That was usually the thing for us. We're like, we just want to like sit, not in the car and eat. Would be great.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we have it pretty comfy in the
We do
van,
have it
but
comfy,
you
yeah.
realize how fast a day goes by when you just sit there and drive. And
Yeah.
that's like your only goal. So when you do 16 hours of driving, you're like, oh man, we started at 6 in the morning. It's already like 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so wild.
Yeah.
So you get out there. Did your buddy, was he going to stay out there or was he flying back?
He just flew back. He probably stayed
Gotcha.
for like 3 or 4 days just
Gotcha.
to hang
Hang
out
out.
with me, help me move in,
Yeah.
and then he flew back to Reno.
Gotcha.
But it was nice to have company because I was like trying to find someone to do this on short notice. I was like, I
Yeah.
really don't want to do this alone. Does
Yeah.
anyone want to come with me, please?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is going to be rough. But yeah, so I got that gig out in Bar Harbor. I was living in like a 2-bedroom apartment with like 3 other people, super cramped. But we lived like right in town, so it kind of felt for the first like few months. I was like, I'm at like summer camp right now. It's
Right.
like everyone lives and works like right in like walking distance, basically.
Oh, yeah.
You're going out with your coworkers like 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just, like,
Everybody knows everybody.
yeah.
Yeah.
Small town Maine, like tourist area. And like someone who had grown up in Reno and lived there for a while and like Nevada is like, it could not have been more of like a culture shock to move to this tiny little coastal town in Maine.
Right.
Yeah, that during the wintertime just completely almost it shuts down.
Oh, yeah.
We
Yeah.
did we went to Cadillac Mountain, but Acadia National Park.
Yeah.
Went up to the top and then we went down to kind of go see
like
downtown
nothing.
and everything. Yeah,
It's
was all closed except for a bookshop. And there was one brewery dive bar. I
don't
can't remember.
remember.
But there was one bar open and they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, it's like dead season."
So
Yeah.
you stayed there? Was it just a seasonal job, or like did you stay there through the winter as well?
So it was a seasonal job. I weaseled my way into helping with like packaging too. They did
Yeah.
bottling at the time, so I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
I'll help go like stand at the end of the line and grab bottles, throw them into cases
Yeah.
for 8 hours a week if you guys, just so I could get like experience. That was like
Yeah.
my whole thing. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get in here and like weasel my way into like whatever brewing adjacent job I can just to like learn. So I was there May through the end of October. So
Gotcha.
just like the full summer season.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted it to be a bit longer. I had talks with them about kind of getting like a cellaring role and like actually like working there year round.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't end up working out, which kind of thank God, because that would have been a tough place to be like a
Mm.
22-year-old who's single in Bar Harbor in the winter, like not ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So
Very-
what'd
man,
you,
that hits
it
home
would be
so
really
hard.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you do next?
Yeah, so then I was didn't have any job lined up, but I had some decent money saved up because I ended up working at a like coffee shop up there part-time too, so just kind of busy working service jobs the whole
Yeah.
time. I was either going to move to Boston, Burlington, Vermont, or Portland, just because those were like nearby, cool, close cities.
Right.
Ended up just randomly moving down here to Portland. Found an apartment last minute, and then just hit the ground running for a job search, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just spent like the first 2 weeks I lived here just going to coffee shops, applying to jobs. And then I got a job at Sebago Brewing Company, so they're kind of a larger regional brewery around here.
Yeah, we've seen a bunch of their facilities around.
Yeah, definitely, and it was a great place to work. I worked in packaging there, so working on cans, kegs, all that stuff. Kind of the entry-level brewing job.
Yeah.
All the grunt work.
How'd you like that? Because I will say I started off keg washing, went from bottom to top. I didn't do Siebel or the UC Davis program, and it's nothing against anybody who does those programs. They're great. I just noticed over my time a lot of people would come straight from those programs, which is a lot of beer theory, but not a lot of trade practice, and started me in the cellar on the brew deck and kind of having to deal with what it actually is physically to work in a brewery and how to troubleshoot. How was that process for you from working from bottom to top?
It was great. I mean, so I had technically helped with some packaging stuff at Atlantic, so I put that on my resume. So I was like, yeah, I've definitely done this.
Yeah.
So maybe that helped me get the job a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, I really enjoyed it because it was just I really wanted to learn every aspect of this. So I was like, I want to learn how the keg washer works. I want to learn how the canning line works. So it was great because we probably had, when I started, a team of 6 or 7 just on the packaging team.
Gotcha.
I think the whole brewery there maybe had 15 or more, so it's decent
Okay,
size.
yeah, that's a good size crew.
Yeah.
It was very separated in here's the packaging team, here's the cellar team, here's the brew team, and then management, which was nice for learning. You really got some good deep dive onto what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah,
But
it's nice to have things structured and sectioned, especially at a bigger brewery, where it's not such a kind of ambiguous blend of oh yeah, so and so does cellaring, but also you might see them in the warehouse and you have to kind of follow orders. It's having structure is good.
Yeah, and I think when you're learning too and just trying to gain knowledge in the industry, that's huge because you don't have to worry about random things that's not your job. You can really just focus on all right, how does this canning line works? What's dissolved oxygen? You know, all these kind of more intricate pieces that are super critical.
Yeah, you're speaking my love language.
Yeah, right, I know.
I love it.
But really learned how a wild goose canning line works. Got pretty good at fixing that thing.
Y'all can sit after this and have a beer, and y'all can share y'all's stories
wild goose
about
stories.
wild
I also
goose.
love wild goose, but so much fun. Okay, so from packaging, how long did you at Sebago?
Yeah.
How long at Sebago from doing all the packaging production did you start to produce wort and cellar or advance your craft beer career?
Yeah, so I was there for, I think, just under 2 years. I started there 6 months. I was there for maybe 6 months, and then COVID hit. So that was brutal.
Yeah.
I think I got furloughed for 6 weeks, and then the team liked me there, and they brought me on, and unfortunately had to let some other people go. So I was incredibly thankful that I still had a job after that.
Yeah.
So I'll call it my charisma, I suppose, that kept me the job. Thank
100%.
God. Yeah. But there, I, again, kind of did the same thing where I was like, hey, if there's any cellaring work you need, let me know. I'm just trying to learn. So I got some more experience doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I eventually was just kind of looking for advancement in the industry. You know, at that place, I would have gotten an opportunity to go, work as a cellarman role and then a brewer. But I think it would have been a bit slower. It may have been, 3 or 4 years to advance there. So I was looking for jobs elsewhere, not because I didn't love working there, but I just wanted to learn more.
Yeah, that's okay. You have a track for your path and career, and you can't wait for somebody to give that to you. And unfortunately, that's just something I think we've both learned in this industry, and probably you as well. It's if you wait for something to happen, it might take a lot longer than what you want it to actually happen.
Especially if it's something that you want. Obviously, if you're passionate about something, you know what you want to do, you know you want to grow. If it's not provided for you at the place that you're at, it's even though they've gotten you to one place, hopefully you're able to take what you can from that place and go to the next. So you have to do what you got to do. So
Exactly. Yeah. So I ended up getting a job that was brewing, cellaring, packaging at a different brewery that ended up closing a couple years ago.
Okay.
But, Four River Brewing. It was in South Portland, Maine. So real close to here. So that was kind of what we were saying. That was the job where you kind of did everything.
Right.
Yep.
When I started, it was just me and the head brewer as far as the production team went. And
that was it.
Yeah, and then we hired someone else, so there's 3 of us for a while. But it was kind of, I got experience brewing there, cellaring, working on different canning line, warehouse stuff, just kind of like all over the place.
Yeah, how has that changed from something so structured to something where it was like everybody does everything, you kind of be all hands on deck at all times?
I think I enjoyed it because I had learned enough at Sebago that I had a very good understanding of kind of how a brewery functions and runs. Especially there, you know, it was very organized, and you really like knew what you were doing every day and every week. So it's nice to kind of go over there and come with some of that experience and help put things together and put things in place where they need to be. And then, you know, it just gave me more opportunity to learn as well, you know, because it wasn't, you know, as segmented. It was like, okay, you kind of had to hop in and get it done.
Yeah. Not as many SOPs or, you know, practices or written out how to use, you know, step by step kind of, you know. Yeah,
or if the brewer's like unloading a truck and there's like a transfer going on, it's like, hey, you have to take care of that. Like,
go watch this real quick.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I guess I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So that experience was incredible. It just, you know, really got me hands-on, learning a lot more.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for that. So I was there only probably a little over a year or so.
Gotcha.
Before I ended up leaving and kind of pursuing this place, opening my own spot.
Okay. Wow.
Was there a moment that you remember that you were like, I'm going to open up my own place?
Yeah, it was probably like the day after I frustration quit.
Okay, there you go. No, that's great. I've done that before too. So
yeah, that was probably a lot of it. At least for me, it's like sometimes you get to a point and, you know, maybe it's being young and naive where you're like, man, like I honestly think I could like run this better than the people who are running it. Not saying that like, you know, they're necessarily like doing not all that they can, but it's like, I just think we could take this in a different direction that might be more beneficial for the company.
Yeah.
You know, be more efficient, make us more money, all of that stuff.
Right.
So, you know, going back to like college, like I had always really been interested in business and accounting. And I did study, did some like entrepreneurship classes in college.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so one of the classes we had to make a business plan and like write out the business plan, kind of like, you know, do all the pro formas and projections. And one of our businesses we did was a craft brewery. At the time, so we had written out a business plan for it and did all the projections and everything. Our idea was going to be like the weirdest, craziest beer styles you could think of. A lot of our inspiration was this soda company. This founder gave us a little pitch and a talk to our class, and they did soda that was like ranch dressing flavored and just like the weirdest stuff possible. I was like, what do we do beer that's just like wild, like novelties basically?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the concept.
Nice.
Don't do this. This is an insane business idea.
Oh yeah.
But
I like how the universe is like already prepping you. You could like reflect back and it's like, I've already written a business proposal for a brewery in class. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
so kind
awesome.
of fast forwarding to when I left that job there and I was kind of in no man's land. I ended up just taking a job at a coffee shop just to, you know, make some money. I had some barista experience before and then kind of like figure out where I want to go. So I had been kind of in the back of my head thinking of starting a brewery or a business in general for, you know, quite a few years.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this was a good push to be like, well, this is like an opportunity right now.
Yeah,
Right.
like a door's open.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all right, that one closed. Like, what are we going to do?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, what's the next move? And I had gotten to the point of that place where, you know, you just kind of get frustrated working for certain people. And you're like, do I really want to go just like work another brewery job where I make $17 an hour and just like, it's just not the place. So I was like, well, I think either my option is go try to do something on my own or pick another career.
Right.
Yeah. I like that nugget of information. That you beat me by like 8-9 years. It took me about 8 or 9 years where kind of a similar scenario being like, okay, I love this career in this industry, but do I want to be doing it for somebody else or do I just want to do my own thing? Or if I can't handle it, do I just need to get out of this industry? And so,
Hence why we're doing the podcast, to
Yeah,
give us
a little
some
sabbatical.
to figure out what's next. So
Right.
podcast has been great for that.
and super bold that during like literally like the height of COVID, you're like, I'm going to open a craft brewery. Yeah.
Like right after.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from there, like you were like working at the coffee shop. Did you have ideas of like where you wanted to open it or like anything like that? Of because you're still here in Portland, did you think about going back west to open up anything, or had you managed a community here that you wanted to stay in Maine?
I wanted to stay in Maine, and I had looked at like surrounding towns in the area, and I just like wasn't sold on some of these smaller towns surrounding Portland. And I know Portland is like hyper flooded with beer and breweries, but I also thought that maybe there was an opportunity to do something like slightly different with it. You know, a lot of the places around here brews mainly ales, IPAs, fantastic, and that is like what the Northeast is kind of known for in beer.
Yeah.
I just thought that maybe there's an opportunity to do something slightly different with it. Because in my opinion, if I was going to open another brewery that just mostly made hazy IPAs in the area, you're just going to get lost, you know?
Yeah. There's not much about you that will stand out.
Yeah, and you know, you could make incredible product, and maybe you'd crush it. It's hard to say, but I think I wanted to pick Portland just because it is a beer city already, and I think it had some degree, you know, the clientele built in. We have a lot of beer tourists that come to Portland just for beer.
Yes, there's a lot. Yeah.
Not to mention, you know, most restaurants are carrying like exclusively like craft beer, and there's kind of this whole infrastructure of beer built up around here. So I did kind of pick Portland, I think, or you know, South Portland. You know, they're very similar kind of people. There's not really necessarily like a hard line between the two. As a place that I think I wanted to open up and do business.
Yeah. What did your family think about all of this?
Everyone was incredibly supportive.
Nice. Hey,
they were, yeah. So I'm very thankful for that. That you know, I had a good support system of friends and families. But yeah, so I think I was just trying to figure out like where we want to do this. I found a real estate broker in this must have been 2022, I think.
Gotcha.
Who I got referred to, and we kind of just like went on the hunt for like a year and a half trying to find a location.
Gotcha.
So we probably looked at like 5 or 6 different spots around the area. Most of them just empty warehouses.
Okay.
And it was tough because it was like you look at an empty warehouse and you're like, I'm gonna be honest, I've never run a construction project before. This probably isn't a good time to do it for the first time.
Right.
Oh,
you know?
right.
Definitely not. Yeah, if you screw up a few 2x4s or you know, things of wood, it'll be very expensive during that time for sure.
Yeah,
So,
everything was expensive.
Yeah.
Labor was expensive. A lot of
Yeah.
the contractors we spoke to who were giving us quotes were like, it's going to be 6 months from when we put our permit application in until we can actually start construction.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's brutal.
Yeah, that's a long
Yeah.
time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So how'd you land on this spot?
Well, this place was another brewery in the area's second location, actually.
Oh, gotcha.
So they had been operating in here, I think, since 2020 or 2021.
Okay.
They opened up like right around COVID, and it was obviously a tough time for everyone. So it was a tough time for them to open. But they were looking just to get out of this location. Their main facility is still running great.
Okay, gotcha.
Great people, great beer. It was just kind of it was a tough spot for them. Kind of
Yeah.
overextended, I think, at a just like unpredictable time.
Right.
Yeah.
So we found this. My broker called me up one day, and she's like, "I have like the perfect spot. Like we need to hop on a call. We got to go over there, check it out." So we came in here, and basically this was set up more or less the same. Our facility here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's tasting room, brewery. It's 5-barrel brew house with a few fermenters, cold room, and then all the fixings for the actual bar portion, the customer side.
Gotcha. So it came turnkey.
Yeah,
Nice.
as turnkey as humanly possible.
That's awesome.
You know, bathrooms are built out, plumbing, electrical done. We
Yeah,
just
that
you know,
solves so many stressful problems too.
oh yeah. So when we saw this, it was like, well, this is as good as it is ever going to get.
And it's a beautiful space. I love the brick. I love the windows.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's great. It's an old municipal building that I think was built in like the late 1800s.
Okay.
In this area
Wow.
where we're at in West Bayside, as it is, wasn't really much until like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was
Oh,
a
okay.
very dilapidated area. Wasn't a lot of like development going on. So a lot of money has like come into this area in the last few years. Just it's one of the last places in Portland on the peninsula that isn't really developed yet.
Okay, so there's a lot of potential.
Yeah, a lot of potential. Like there's quite a few just like vacant, empty lots behind us. That there's a lot of like apartment buildings getting like planned on building there.
Yeah.
So-
There's a beautiful apartment building across the street.
That opened up
Yeah.
like months before we did.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, interesting area, but you know, still on peninsula, so still like walkable for most people in the Portland area.
Gotcha.
But like slightly off the beaten path. Kind of something that I knew would be a few years in the making. It's like it might not be the perfect spot right now, but give it 2 or 3 years, and I think this location is going to be super solid.
Yeah, be like a community hub. How was the community reception when you decided on this as your facility?
I think it was good. We had great terms with the brewery who we purchased everything from. You know, for me in particular, community is really important, and I don't want any bad blood.
Right.
We have a rule here in the space that like no trash talking other breweries or anything like that. Just because it's like there's no need. The beer community in Maine, in my opinion, is incredibly kind to each other, very helpful. Everyone sort of sees it as you're working together. You're not necessarily competing with each other.
You're trying to grow as a community to lift the community up.
Yeah, because it's like, we don't want breweries making bad beer that is just like bad for the whole industry.
Right.
It's like if everyone's making good beer, the whole craft industry can improve. Because you think of like that one person that might try a beer at a craft brewery, and if it's like a bad experience for them, they might never try craft beer again.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, like you said, Portland can be known as a beer community, and then also have, the beer tours and everything like that. Like, that helps y'all tremendously. So if everyone, like you said, is making good beer, more people want to come to, that's a lot of what we heard, like, in Asheville as well. Like, people, like, come to, like, visit all the craft breweries. And that's
do
their,
all,
like,
the
vacation.
brewery
It's like,
bus ride
I'm going to
tours.
come do craft beer weekend and, like, spend a weekend just going to all the craft breweries. So,
Yeah,
I love
we
that.
can attest the people here are really nice.
Yes.
Coming from where, and I've talked about this openly before. I feel like Portland, Oregon, it can be very competitive, and people, I think, can give the feeling of trying to size you up on like, what are your accolades? How much do you know? Like, who have you worked for? So it's like stature and reputation before it's like, okay, it's okay to talk to you or befriend you or help you. But here, everybody's been like, oh yeah, like you should go talk to so and so. They'd love to sit down and talk with you. And we show up at the bar, and they're like, yeah, come, we'll show the brewery, like take you around. I'm like, what is happening? Like, I feel like someone smacked me with like happy dust. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's super
But yeah,
nice.
the people here in this industry
We've
are
enjoyed it.
super welcoming.
Yeah.
And that's part of like why I really enjoyed Maine and like why I wanted to stay is I found the same thing, that there's kind of this like overarching sense of community with like everyone I interact with, that the way I kind of put it is like, you might not know your neighbor's name, but if you're in a snowstorm, they'll come help you shovel out your car, not say a word to you, and then turn back around. And it's like that, like, I'm here to help you. Like, there is this community feeling, like,
Nice.
whether or not we're like best friends.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
I think that's definitely enjoyable and definitely doable.
Yeah.
So you had done this business plan in college, but like, how did you formulate your own of what did you want the field to look like? Kind of like the, I guess, theme or style, and then the name. Like, how did you come up with all of those things?
Yeah, so I think me just be sort of detail oriented and knowing that I wanted to do something like in this in the future. Had just like, a million notes on my notes app on my phone of like, all right, like I went to this brewery in like Connecticut and they had a really cool bathroom. Take a note of what it looked like. And so
Nice.
I think we have the same thing on our phone.
Yeah. No, it's a good way to do it. So I had been doing things like that for literally years of like every detail that I like ran across that I thought was cool. Like, oh, I love this glassware at this place.
Right.
Like, oh, this beer style was awesome. They use this cool hop. I gotta, take note of that.
Yeah.
So to some degree, it had been like in my head or written out for a long time.
Yeah.
Of just like planning what things were gonna look like. But then, you finally like, we closed on the deal, and then the rubber hits the road, and you're like, all right, like, get going.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it was I wanted things to be fairly simple and kind of clean, like not a ton of frills. So a lot of the inspiration for this place is I knew I wanted it to have like a pseudo like Western feel to it, mostly because that's like where my roots are.
Right.
Yeah.
And it made sense to me to be like, this is like who I am. This is more genuine. So some of the history I was finding about these places they're called lager beer saloons in the Northeast in like New York and other big cities.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they were in, I want to say it was like mid to late 1800s. You had all the German immigrants coming over from Europe, and they would open up these tiny little like brewery pubs basically, but they kind of brought that German feel of
Interesting.
Of kind of the family-oriented, like, and brewing lagers, and just kind of a very, like, calm atmosphere versus, more of, like, the liquor saloons or whiskey saloons where that was just, like, you're there to get, like, hammered.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So there's a lot more of, like, a peaceful environment. So I was kind of pairing that history with being, from the West and, kind of a hybrid of, like, all right, like, give it a slight Western feel, but focus on brewing lagers and kind of having this, like, clean, friendly, like, nice environment that, people can hang out in. The name Argenta comes from Nevada, so the origins of that are, Nevada is the silver state. There was a lot of silver mining that went down there in the 1800s, and one mine was called Argenta, which means silver in Latin, and that was named, my college dorm my freshman year was called Argenta Hall.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, so kind of tying all of these elements together.
Yeah.
I like that
that.
thoughtfulness. That's awesome.
Yeah, and not to mention, it starts with an A, so it's like the third brewery in Maine if you look up a list of breweries.
That's nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
One of the breweries we did in St. Louis, their second shift, and instead of spelling it out with an S, it's the 2, and so it's like always at the top because it's a number and not a letter. And so smart. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of my thought too, and there's a lot of trial and error, just trying to find a name and figure out, like, all right, what do we want this place to be called?
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be kind of short and sweet too.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Not
it really
super
is.
long.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Did you? So this is a lot. This is a lot. So was there somebody that you? Obviously, you had someone to help you find this place, but like, do you have any business partners? Did you have any mentors, or was it just friends and family that were kind of you would bounce ideas off? Because it seems like it's just you, but I don't know. Did you have any
so
support?
I'm the only owner. Legally speaking.
Yeah.
So it's just me as the owner. I worked for some people in college. This guy back in Nevada who ran a bar and restaurant supply company. So he had run that place for like 30-something years. So he was always like good inspiration for me for business insight.
Gotcha.
So I bounced a lot of things off him. And being in that space, he was very much like, all right, here's like certain things you should definitely do.
Right.
Here's things you should avoid.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of like bouncing ideas off friends and family, people in the
Right.
industry I've worked with for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as far as just like doing everything, it was, just me. But I mean, I say that in the way that like, all right, I had like a broker who helped me find everything. I had like attorneys who helped me with the deal. There was the bank and family and all the stuff I had to borrow money from and all of that. So it's like I never want to say it was just me because that's just like not accurate.
Yeah,
Well,
you
yeah,
have like
like,
a support team.
You have the support. I just didn't know like if there was another person who was just I don't know.
Yeah,
But
it's
that makes
immensely
sense to
inspirational
have.
and impressive. I
Yeah.
think, especially for younger people, and I'm not old. I shouldn't say younger
Yeah.
people, but like people wanting to chase their dreams, where you'd done prior work and information and education about it, but you also were like, kind of this attitude of like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And learn on the way. That's immensely impressive.
And part of that too is I think part of like, having some mental health struggles in college was I don't want to like regret something when I'm older. And I knew that for a long time I had wanted to do something like this. So I was like, I don't want to be the guy who's like 55, stuck at a job he hates, and just like regret that I never did this.
Yeah.
And like, am I certain this is going to succeed? Hell no. I don't know. It's tough to say, but it's like will always be glad that I tried it and put everything into it.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. That was something that my wife has helped me out, but like I've always been like fearful of it, and she's just kind of like when we were doing the van.
Yeah.
She said, fuck it, we're going to travel. Well, where would we get jobs? I don't know, we'll figure it out.
Figure
And
it
for
out.
me, my whole entire being was like, that's uncomfortable with me. And then part of me was like, well, what time are you going to do it? And I was like, you're right, sure, let's go.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's like, I love that attitude of like, we will figure it out. If you have that mindset of like, we're going to figure it out because we have to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, hey, if we have no money in our bank account, we're going to figure out how to, make some money this week and, get some food on the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're in those positions, like it elevates you to do so much more and to give yourself confidence that it's like I may fail, but I know I can pick myself back up and I'm going to do it and I'm going to learn from all of it rather than just like I don't know.
Having the fear of failure, but never trying.
Yeah, and like sitting, like you said, I mean, I've worked corporate before. I've sat at the desk in the cubicle and no windows. And, like, I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be active. I wanted to do more. And it's like, if you know what you want, like, going after it, like, people can do that and love that for them. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. So love that you learned that very early on. And that's impressive because I think it takes a lot of people that we've talked to, it takes them a lot longer. I mean, they're still living their life now, obviously, and glad that they're doing it now. But to take the chance now, I think, is such a huge thing. And props to you. It's just very cool. It's a really cool space.
I mean, that's, again, it's tough because I think of what I have gone through in the last, like, couple years. I could not imagine if I had a, like, family and kids and doing this. Like, I don't think it would have been possible.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people do.
That I don't know how people do that.
Literally, I'm almost
hats off to them.
Like,
Because my God,
I think so many people that you're a 34th brewery to interview with. I think the majority of them have done that later. Like, all of them have had previous careers.
Yeah.
And then switched in. If they're an owner or operator, they've switched into that normally with spouse and sometimes kids and stuff like that. So yeah. Oof. It's pretty wild.
No, it's
but
insane.
They're making it, so
we have a good majority. It's like 50% already had a family prior, and then the other 50% don't, and they're just like, this is my dream and my business, and I'm just going to try and see it through.
Love it so much. So you're coming up on a year. What has this first year been like for you?
Insane.
Nice, good, as it should be.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been quite the roller coaster. In like so many different ways, I think the biggest one is just you don't really know what you don't know yet.
Right.
I'm not some like seasoned veteran running a business or anything. This is the first time I've ever done this. But I kind of went into this knowing that there are going to be so many things I'm going to screw up, and we're just going to have to figure it out along the way and hope we can pick ourselves up again. Some of those things being just like, there are certain stretches and periods where it's like, hey, it just was not as busy as we were anticipating for this month, and we're going to have to figure out how to, make this work financially.
How to adjust.
Kind of how do we fit into the community? How do we fit into this, very crowded beer market in Maine? And just sort of like what our model is going to be. Initially we opened up, and we're like, all right, we're not going to do any distribution at all. So in Maine, you can do self-distribution, and they're very actually like pretty good laws for breweries around here on that one.
Nice.
But originally we're not going to do any distro, but then we realized it's like, hey man, like our numbers could be better in the tasting room. Let's bring our beer elsewhere to bars and restaurants. And kind of move some product that way. And that's been very successful for us. Not to any like insane amount. It's literally just me running around doing like sales and distro. Like in the morning before I come and bartend here. But I mean, things like that have been great because you get to be more involved in the community. You get to meet some new folks that you didn't know beforehand. People might try your beer at a bar or restaurant, stop in here and have some.
Exactly, getting the name out there.
And that's been kind of the biggest thing for us. I feel like we've done solid. I think with our like social media for what it is for starting.
It looks really good. When we were looking,
That's
like when we look at people
places
to interview, I'm like, if you check their Instagram and their website, if it looks like it's taken care of and done well, I'm like, then I can assure that the beer will probably taste just fine.
Right.
Honestly, I mean, I think that's been a big thing is like, we can usually tell if we're gonna like the beer or not based off of a website and their Instagram, because the detail that it takes to do that, if you have that same detail in the beer, like it's there.
It transfers well.
And a lot of that is, I got help outsourcing all of our like branding material too, and I had that all professionally done by a local artist here.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, all of that.
He loves the logo.
I
mean, I do too. But
it reminds me of like Seeger Company or Sam Larson, which are Seeger Company is like a Western clothing brand, and Sam Larson is like based out of Utah, but he does like very similar style, and I love it. I was like, this is beautiful.
Just like the slight Western spin on things a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So, is it just what does your team look like?
So it's me and one bartender right now.
Okay.
She works full time. Throughout most of the summer, we did have 3 of us.
Okay.
But down to 2 for right now. Kind of going into the winter.
Right.
Winter in Maine is just like it's the slow season. Things aren't getting busier in February.
So
it's just kind of like buckling up for the winter here, and that's like a lot of places here. It's a lot of places reduce their hours a lot, really get more lean because there's just like not the tourists that there are in July and August.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of Maine is it is very seasonal, so it's kind of a different climate and economy than a lot of places in that like a lot of places are making like 80% of their money between like May and October.
Gotcha.
And then it's just there's not as much action when it's cold and dark.
Do you see more of like a local regular as it, like you said, gets dark and you want to be somewhere cozy? Do you see more of like a local regular sort of like demographic that tends to come in as opposed to 80-90% of these people who might never see ever again?
Yeah, and we did find that I think mostly due to our location here, we're a little off the beaten path. We're not in like the old port or like the really tourist areas. Most of our customers are locals who live here.
Gotcha.
Which is what we were going for. We really always wanted to have like a community feel and like lean on the community and be a place for people who live in Portland.
Right.
So yeah, I think we definitely see that. So I think coming into the winter, it's like that is our customer base already.
Yeah.
They're not back in Florida or wherever. They're already here. So I'm looking forward to the winter because I think it will be an opportunity for people to come out and hang out. Because a lot of people that live in Portland, me included, like we don't go out a ton in the summer because it's just like a war zone out there. There's so many people.
It's too much hassle.
Yeah, it's too much.
And if you're already living in Maine, you already like the cold, like the snow, like you already know like what it is. So it's like that you're gonna like go out, and when it's dark and cold and it's 5 o'clock.
Well, even your favorite places during the summer can be packed with not your friends or not locals or anything. And so we felt that before too.
Yeah, it makes sense to have the community base that you have and you've created. So really great for you.
Also, I wish it got dark at 5. It's more like 4 or earlier.
Oh, yes.
In the middle of winter.
Yeah,
exactly.
We're going to be here, so you'll probably see us. We'll be...
You'll see us in here working, playing cribbage. Yeah.
We'll be trying to ward off the
Yeah, that's how we do it in
winter
Astoria.
series.
Happens all the time in the West. It gets like dark at 4 p.m. And especially her, she'd be working in the van all day. And the only place open during COVID in Astoria when I was working at Fort George was a bottle shop, Bridge Tunnel. And so when she found...
Me and Dwayne are buddies.
Yeah, so when we found out that was the place to work, she's like, babe, I can't sit in the van in the dark for like 8 hours and work. I'm like, sweet, go there. And we'd meet off shift. And everybody that worked in town basically ended up at Dwayne's because that was the only place open to have a beer and a pint and a conversation.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the thing. But... Well, that's so much. So your first year, you kind of coming into your own, is there some stuff that you're looking forward to for this next year that you're going to do a little bit different or any like changes that you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we like to do like events here in the tasting room. Like big ones are like we do a trivia every Thursday.
Oh, right.
It has been like our most successful event we've done, hands down.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So
Trivia
that one's
great.
Yeah, which is like, some of this stuff is like, I have no idea how this is going to go.
Yeah.
I know it's like a popular event, but we'll see how it goes. But that's been our most consistent event that we've had. We're kind of going to throw in some more stuff like a music bingo night and just like other kind of like random fun like pub games like that.
Very cool to bring like community in together.
Yeah, exactly. Because we find that like those days do really well for us. Like this area doesn't get a ton of foot traffic, so it's kind of like building in the event so people have more of a reason to come here.
Nice.
We've always been of the mindset that like we need to provide value for like the customer. So it's like we need to give them more of a reason than just come and have the beer. Because it's like I'm sure you guys have seen with other places you've interviewed. It's like craft beer is not where it was 8 years ago, not even close. Opening up your doors and just being like, there's gonna be a line around the corner for the next 5 years. Like that's insane. You're nuts.
For sure.
It's changed quickly.
It's wild.
Incredibly quickly. So I think looking forward though in the future, we're working on some other non-beer products as well.
Okay.
So we're working on like a alcoholic ginger beer.
Rad.
With like another bar in town that we're really excited about that. More collab beers. And just like overall, just like for me personally running this place, really like dialing in our systems here and getting this to run, like smooth and efficiently. Coming from like a production side of like working, it's like, you have your SOPs and like your whole life is like run on like these systems of like, follow these directions and, run the place. So kind of, factoring in more of that stuff here. So it's just run more efficiently is big to me.
Yeah, I think it's great that you had that background, because I think small breweries, the struggle can be they don't have good SOPs, which means like time efficiency, and like your waste loss is like far less when you follow things that directly. And so it can be with smaller facilities, they're just like, oh yeah, I got distracted with a bunch of different things. So my brew day went from like 8 to 14 hours, and then I still have like other things I need to get done before I leave. And so I think having that background just sets you up of like, I can scale this up so easily for as big as I want it to get.
Exactly.
Well, I think as a business owner, like you have so many decisions and things you have to think about all the time. So if you can eliminate like having to make a decision about something when you have like a SOP written out for yourself, you're like, oh, I don't have to think about this. Like I'm thinking about it, but I don't have to like make a decision and wonder.
Frees up mental space.
Yeah, like for you, like the amount of decisions I'm sure you have to make on a daily basis, like having something that's streamlined would be very helpful for your mental and the weight that it could carry. So.
Yeah, I just want to interject this because I realized we kind of like skipped over it when we were talking about Argenta and the atmosphere and sort of the personality you wanted it to have as you were making it. With your beer, do you have like core standard beers, or is it just you make and create as you go, and maybe some things don't come back around? What does that process look like for you?
Yeah, so we focus on brewing lagers.
Okay, perfect.
That's kind of like our niche, if you will.
Nice.
And like I was saying, it's like that was kind of our way of like, at least beer-wise, standing out from the rest of the market to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
I saw lagers in the last few years in particular kind of like gain a lot of popularity.
Oh, yeah.
And part of that being like they're the most popular beer in the world. You know, every mature beer market, more or less, like that's what people are drinking. You know, you look at every big beer brand in the U.S., you know, more or less, it's all lagers.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if I was going to put all my eggs in a basket and kind of try to stand out, I was like, that's what we're going to do to be a little bit different. So, yeah, as far as the beer goes, though, we have a few that stick around. The one we've had since the beginning, we call the generic American lager.
Okay.
It's just like our take on like the big macro beers, just like easy drinking, lawnmower beer, basically.
Nice.
You're the only other person that I've heard say lawnmower beer.
Oh, yeah.
He has that saying. He's like, a lawnmower beer. And I'm like, what? And he's like, a lawnmower beer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, got it. You can drink while you mow the lawn.
Exactly, yeah. So we've had that one on since we started. Another one is we call it the black lager, which is our like Schwarzbier style, basically.
Nice.
So we've had that on since the beginning. But other than that, it's just been like shuffling through. Like we did our Oktoberfest Märzen style, kind of just like poking around at different like lager styles that intrigue me, basically.
Awesome.
We find that like our best selling beer of the month is whatever new beer we just put on.
Oh,
so it's
very
like,
cool.
People tend to like the new ones we put on, and it's kind of switch it up a bit. We only do 5 beers on draft, so it's not a huge list.
Yeah.
Part of that is super intentional in that we wanted you to be able to look at our draft list and in like 2 seconds know what you want.
Yeah.
That's smart.
The other part is I only have 4 fermenters and we're making lagers, so I don't have enough space to do more than that.
A lot of time tied up, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't going to be like, I'm going to have like 10 draft lines, but it just like, I guess having some more experience in the industry, knowing like that's just not possible. I don't want to have all these empty draft lines. I think it's just like a bad look and just like it's a waste of money to buy like a draft tower that we just can't fill up.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Or that sits and gets old, and then people are drinking old beer, and then they don't
Yeah.
like it.
Don't want that, yeah.
It's definitely a pet peeve of mine I don't really have many pet peeves, but for the beer industry, that's one. I'm like, if you know your beer's old, like, at least discount it. At least tell me, you're like, we know it's a little bit older, we're going to discount it for you. Like, I don't know, like, I hate drinking a beer I'm like, oh, this is old.
Well, especially now when beer is like $8 a pint, $9 a pint. If you get something that you can just tell it's like, oh, this is like an old dusty beer, you're like, oh man.
Yeah. And if you gave it to the brewer would be like, yeah, it's old. And I'm like, then why am I drinking it?
Yeah. And that's always brutal too.
Yes.
And kind of another reason we didn't want to do super hop forward beers is like, I don't know how fast these are going to sell. I don't want to like make something and then it just sits in the cold room dying after a month and it's just not good.
Yeah.
You know,
I was gonna say I like your intentional thought around like having just like 5 beers on tap, but also having something so small people know exactly like what the regular beers are, the new thing on to try and taste, and then that just like kicks and kills super fast. You get immediate feedback, immediate data, and then it's like cool. We can either do something similar that follows that, or we can do something totally different. Either way, we know that we're just going to be able to get information. I think that's super smart.
I love it.
Yeah, it's been fun. And like funny enough, like since we started doing distro maybe like 3 months ago or so. Basically, all of our distro partners have gotten like the black lager, so our dark lager, which is the one that like doesn't move nearly as quick here in the tasting room. So it's like just like wiped us out in like a couple weeks, and it's like, God damn, it's like now we're like way thrown off on that one. So it's kind of interesting to see like, you know, where in the market people like to drink what, because it's like we found in here all summer, obviously people like, we have a rice lager that just like crushed all summer long.
Yeah, you couldn't keep it on long enough.
Yeah, and then that slows down a lot as the weather cools down, and now the darker stuff is ripping. So it's kind of just fun to see like the seasonal changes. Like obviously you know this like being in the industry, like what's going to do well at what, but it's just like kind of cool seeing like when you're actually here making it, serving it, like what's moving around and what people like. And I found that was one of the most interesting things of this place. So it's like I bartend here 5 days a week. I'm doing all the brewing, cellaring, all that stuff. So it's like I get that immediate feedback of like, you know, I just put this beer on draft, and then you have people taste it, and then you get that feedback, good or bad. It's like you immediately get to know like, all right, how do the consumers like this product? Because that's at the end of the day, what I like does not matter. It's like, what do the customers want? What do the consumers want? That's genuinely all that matters, because really it's like we're trying to run a business. We want to make the best product we can, but if people don't want it, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you know? So it's like we need to make stuff that they want to drink.
Yeah.
So that feedback is very valuable, and I love that it's kind of that immediate feedback there, which you don't get in a lot of industries, or even, you know, if like the person making it isn't the one bartending, you know, there's communication issues and everything.
Yeah. Well, your level of care, you know, is immense. And so I think it's also great too that you're able to be like, hey, whether it's good or bad feedback, it's still information that, you know, you can take with it what you want and apply it where you want. So I think that's super important. It also makes you very tied to your craft. A lot of people get, I think, very distant because they've either been doing it for a long time, and then it's just like, I'm just tired, we just need to get through. And it's like, oh,
Yeah, no, for sure. So 1 year coming up in February. Do you have any big plans for a 1 year party? I know it's February in Maine, but like, do you have any plans?
Yeah, definitely want to do like a big kind of 1 year anniversary party.
Okay.
Are you brewing a special beer?
I was thinking of having the original 4 beers we had on draft
That's awesome.
for that day.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, something like that. I'll be honest, I can't say there's been a ton of planning for that event. It's been a hectic few months here.
I'm
but
sure.
Yeah.
We can see all the hats you're wearing. I'm like, we understand.
Yeah,
Don't
right.
worry about it.
Stretched a little too thin, maybe, but yeah, definitely. You know, want to do an event for that. Just trying to like map out, you know, what the winter is going to look like, and then going into the next spring and summer, like what all that's going to look like. You know, I really want to do some more collaboration beers. We have a couple that we've done. We have one that I might be getting like, delivered today or tomorrow that we did a collab with, a Munich Dunkel style.
Oh, rad.
Very excited about that one. And then actually you guys were chatting about Bellflower. We did a Doppelbock. We brewed that with them a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
Oh,
Very
awesome.
cool.
I was just about to ask if you were going to do a winter beer, would you do a Doppelbock?
Yep.
And that's perfect.
It's like
Get
the
in-
perfect, yeah, it's going to be like 8.5%, I think. Soup, just like great for when it's just like dark and cold and sad out. So you can just chill in
Something
here.
a little hearty, just,
Yeah.
sweet. Just,
We're excited. We're excited. We're going to be here for, like I said, a couple months. So we're excited to experience winter. We've done winter on the West Coast, so excited to do winter on the East Coast.
It's like I really enjoy winter in Portland. That was always like one of my favorite times because, you know, like the cold, you just dress up for it. Throw on another layer, throw on a hat, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
but
you'll
it's just,
get inside and then you'll warm up. It'll be fine.
It's very cozy everywhere. Again, that's where I really feel like that sense of community, at least in like Portland and places I've lived around here, because you know, the tourists are kind of gone for the most part, and it's just people who live here. You get to chat with the bartender you like and haven't seen in a year, you know. So
how was your summer? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's just kind of, it's a totally different feel around here, and I really enjoy it. It just kind of, I think, brings out more of what Portland and Maine is.
like a more authentic Portland.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And again, I have not lived here for that long, but it's just in my experience, that's kind of been what it is. And I would imagine that would make sense too. Like all the, you know, outsiders leave and you're kind of stuck with who's dealing with this every year, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We'll be the crazy ones that are just here.
You're going to love it. Yeah.
We're excited for it. We have had, I can't remember what states, but we've had a couple states where people are like, "You're from Oregon, huh? Are you moving here?" And we're like, "No, we're literally just like working and passing through." And then
Right.
their demeanor
Good.
totally changes, like, "Oh, okay, no worries." But
Or one last question. Are we ready for our last question?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So if you were to give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think, honestly, like, go with what your gut tells you. If I've learned anything over the past, couple of years getting this place started, you can take advice from, dozens of people at once, and it's all different. And you're like, well, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
I would say, like, you inside probably have the answer, and just trust your gut on it. Because I feel like most decisions that I've made here that have worked out well, it's been something that, like, I feel like this is the right thing to do. Obviously, like, do your homework on stuff. Don't go into things blind if you can. But it's like, trust your gut on the judgment, and just roll with it. Because at the end of the day, it's like you will never know what the alternative is. But, like, put the faith in yourself, and you got to roll with it, because you have really no other option. Like, what's the downside of doing that? Like, not a lot. I think it's important to trust yourself, and you need to have that, like, self-confidence, whether or not it's, like, tied to reality at all, but sometimes it's like, that's just what you got to do, and you'll feel better mentally about it, I think.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great advice.
I love that. It's great.
Well, I know we just did our last question, but we almost forgot. You also run a podcast with somebody else about small business groups in Maine and kind of navigating that world. So maybe you could talk about that briefly so we can plug it, and then we can close it out.
Sure, yeah. That was something, me and an employee who unfortunately isn't working with us right now for no bad reasons at all. We're still planning on keeping that podcast rolling. But
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's called the Generic American Podcast, based off of our Generic American lager, which we thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, our whole take with that is just kind of like working with the community and, getting other business leaders in the Portland area, business owners on the podcast, and just, like, talking to them about their experience.
Gotcha.
Because kind of similar to this, it's just, for me, it's just kind of interesting to be like, how did you get into this? Like, how are you doing with this? Because I know, like, business ownership can be incredibly isolating and difficult, and everyone has their own story. But I think you're all, like, kind of, you bond over the fact that, like, we've all done just this kind of, like, psycho thing separately, but together. We have these shared experiences. So that's kind of like our goal with that, is just to, like, chat with other people in the area and just see, how they've done it, and just hopefully we can get the word out on them too. Kind of like what you're doing here is just like, hey, like, we want to, like, plug you guys and help you out for, we're not trying to get anything out of it other than just, like, this is fun, this is cool, something interesting to do.
That's awesome. Okay, the Generic American Podcast.
I love that.
Yeah.
So
Check
great.
it out.
We struggled to find a name for a while, and we're like, what if we did something like that? That ties into, like, what we're doing here. So yeah.
Do y'all do it here in the tap room?
Yeah, I can show you up. We have, like, a little loft area
very
that's
cool.
like
that's so
technically
rad.
not usable space, but we, like, built a little backdrop to it and
very
have it all
nice.
set up there.
Hell
It's
yeah.
hilarious.
I love
It's
that.
great.
Nice.
I
We'll
love
check it
that.
out.
Yeah,
Well, thank you
great.
so much for your time today, Ryan. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
so
you.
much.
This
Cheers.
has been awesome.